Let's get out to the England guest hotline and bring in Courtney Cronin. She puts her pants on the same way, too. You can't
one
just
leg at a time.
Magically make it happen one leg at a time. Courtney was up watching practice today. There was some good, and there was a whole lot of uh-oh, and it sounds like it is centered around the very important left tackle position. How do you want to start this, Courtney, with some good or some bad?
Yeah, let's just address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
They don't have a left tackle right now, and it didn't look good. I counted 5 false starts today, and 2 of them happened on back-to-back plays to start the final move the ball period. The first one was on Jonah Jackson. It was hard to see who the second one was on, but they didn't get off to a great start there. And, a lot of the shuffling that's going on feels like, do they have a starter right now? And and the answer is no. And that's a problem because it's the most important position on the offensive line, I would say. I mean, protecting somebody's blind side, especially if they're a right-handed quarterback like Caleb is. It's, 68 sacks a year ago. Yes, I know a lot of those came up through the interior. They addressed that. But to not have your starting left tackle figured out by now, 3.5 weeks into camp, is concerning. And I think what Ben Johnson said today just shows you where they're at. Like, he says he wants clarity. Nobody has come up and grabbed this spot by now. So it's not like they're throwing Theo Benedette in there to try to, motivate Braxton Jones. They're literally trying anything at this point to figure out if the left tackle's on the roster. And it didn't look good. I mean, there were moments. I mean, Theo starts with, 3 days in a row as a pattern. And he started with the ones today in team drills at left tackle. So very clearly, it's not a gimmick. They're considering him for this spot, and Ben Johnson, said he's had a lot of growth. But let's not forget, this guy was on the practice squad a year ago. He's a UDFA. All of a sudden, he's in the mix after they couldn't figure it out with these other 3. And I think that's a little alarming overall. And, I mean, just not a really good day for the offensive line. I think the caveat there is you are going against a team that Ben Johnson and everybody else knows is a Super Bowl contender. He said as much this morning. So you can see where the gap is, but you can also see just how much work they have to do on that offensive line, not just at left tackle, but, Darnell Wright got beat a couple times too. They've got some really good edge rushers up there. Bosa was having a day. Greg Rousseau was having a day. It didn't look pretty.
Well, it's concerning. And on Trapillo specifically, I want to ask you something about Trapillo. To what degree, Courtney, do you think they really thought he could compete and be a left tackle? Was it like, hey, we'll hope that maybe it can happen, or did they think, no, we see a left tackle. We know he played mostly right, but we see a left tackle, and we think even as a rookie he can push to be the starter?
I think it's the latter because it's hard to say where he would have started had Braxton Jones been healthy in OTAs and minicamp. I think he probably would have been where he should have been, which is with the 2s, and instead of splitting reps with Karan Amagaji, he would have naturally been behind. He didn't have the experience, and it's a position that he didn't play all that much outside of that first year. I mean, the reason he was so good and the reason he's a second-round pick is because he is such a good right tackle. But I do think that they brought him in here thinking that at some point in his rookie season, without the pressure of having to start right away, that he would be able to supplant whoever it was is at the left tackle spot. And that could very well happen because the way that Ben Johnson talked about this today and how they're going to decide who the starter is, they've got that week 5 bye circled so they can evaluate the first 4 games. If they choose a starter who just isn't panning out well, that they can make that switch early on. And I think it actually might be the saving grace here to all of this, considering you're 3.5 weeks in. No one has done enough of the 4 that you have, really the 3 that you had, not that you enter a 4th into the mix. Nobody's done enough to put themselves in the position to say, I am, without a shadow of a doubt, the team's best option at left tackle. That just hasn't happened. So I think even for a guy like Trapillo, who now they're getting reps in at right tackle, with the 2s. He has not seen first-team reps this week with the 1s, and he had been seeing first-team reps with the 1s at left tackle all last week and all throughout training camp. So I think I don't say it's a step back or anything like that. I just think that they realize now, okay, he's probably our swing tackle to start the year. Eventually he can become the left tackle, but I I think it's a pickle that they're in right now with all of this, like all of the shifting that they're doing. I mean, even in the middle of the move the ball period, they start out with Theo Benedette. There's back-to-back false starts. There's one play to Zacchaeus, and then Benedette goes out. Braxton Jones comes in. And it's hard to establish any sort of consistency up front when there's this much moving around with the left tackle.
Yeah. How much is the recovery from injury maybe playing a role into some of Braxton's struggles?
I'm sure it is, but I also think if we're being honest about this, he's hit his ceiling as a fifth-round pick. Like, that's no knock on him, but he plays with a narrow base. We have known that since 2022. Has he done an admirable job in 40 starts for somebody who has the physical limitations that it just doesn't seem he's been able to overcome? And that's not a bad thing. It's just that, sometimes you hit your ceiling. Sometimes you are what you are, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that there's not improvement along the way, but I think for what they're looking for a better answer there, an upgrade. And, the ankle injury certainly didn't help because it kept him off the field for about 8 months once he injured it. And, he talked about how difficult that process was for him to get back on the field. And there were times where he was trying to push it probably faster than they wanted him to. But I think anytime you miss that much time and you're in a contract year, there's all these factors that come in that will factor into how you play. And it just feels like even today, there was a play at the end, like Caleb hits Zacchaeus, and I guess this would be the good part. Yeah. He hits Alameda Zacchaeus for a 45-yard catch-and-run touchdown. Great. And then they end the move the ball period with back-to-back sacks. And one of those, Greg Rousseau just pushed Braxton Jones into Caleb Williams, and it would have been a very ugly play had that been, true live contact.
Sure, yeah, we saw way too much of that last year.
All right,
yeah.
The one place I didn't think we were going to have a question mark was at the right tackle position. I thought Darnell Wright had played well in his first 2 years with a chance to be even better. I read between the lines yesterday and said our guy came in out of shape and maybe a tad bit overweight. How did they get him right?
That was about as honest as you're going to get. And I think Dan Rochar gave a great evaluation of what's wrong. And when you hear about focus, like, that's motor. Again, that was something that, the Bears, remember the workout that they put him through at Tennessee when they were, going through with Chris Morgan, Ryan Poles. They went down there ahead of the draft, and they worked him out to the point of exhaustion to see how he would react. And very clearly, when you have your offensive line coach saying you're making mistakes because your focus isn't there, you're playing 60-some snaps on any given game on offense. Like, think about how many plays an offense runs now. Like, you've got to be sharp, whether it's snap number 1 or snap number 57. And I think that's a concern. I also think that...
Okay, True Fan Travel and ESPN Chicago are teaming up for the ultimate fan getaway to Sin City. That's right. We're going to see the Bears take on the Raiders in Vegas at the end of September. It's going to be great.
What do you get? Round trip airfare. You get a 3-night stay at Mandalay Bay. You got special live broadcasts of all the fellas. We're going to be there, guys. It's going to be Friday. It's going to be Saturday. It's going to be all the stuff on Sunday. It's going to be fantastic. You get to meet the ESPN Radio Chicago 1000 team, all-inclusive tailgate with all the bells and the whistles. Tickets to the Bears-Raiders game, which is probably the most important thing in the world, and there's more to come.
All right, spots are limited, so do not wait. Reserve your spot today at truefantravel.com.
Boom.
Them addressing it now and not letting it, fester. It kind of goes along with the theme that they've had all off season long, where they're calling out mistakes on the fly as they happen. But that's one that I would earmark. Like, left tackle obviously is grabbing all the headlines right now, as it should, but what's going on at right tackle is, and just some of those concerns about a third-year player. Guy was drafted 10th overall. This is supposed to be the year that you set yourself up for that big contract next year, and whether they're going to pick up your fifth-year option and all of those things. Like, that's a huge story that I feel like, just given everything else, has kind of gone under the rug a little bit.
Totally agree. Courtney Cronin is our guest live at House on the England guest hotline. It's Carmen and Jurko on ESPN Chicago and the ESPN Chicago app. You mentioned the Zacchaeus touchdown. I haven't seen a lot of practices, only a couple, but just what I saw and from what you guys keep reporting about it, it sounds like he continues to have a pretty nice camp. I think you know what you have there in Zacchaeus. What else was good today, I would ask?
I think that Rome-Caleb connection is really good. And Rome is a star. They knew he was going to be a star when they drafted him 9th overall. But, him coming alive the last couple of days in the red zone, or really, like, if you go back, like, even a couple of days before that, like, that's where, I know DJ Moore got most of the targets there last year among the receivers, and Rome was number 2 in targets inside the 20. I think that's where you're going to see the strongest impact from Rome Odunze this year, because Caleb Williams has something down there. When you hear Ben Johnson talk about those high back 5 throws, the ones that are in the back of the end zone, tight window, like, there's one guy that Caleb's looking for more times than not on those plays, and it happened to be Rome Odunze today, and then he found him at the front of the end zone, like right at the goal line, and then he like fell into the end zone for a touchdown on back-to-back plays. Like, that to me was probably the most positive moment from practice, outside of Zacchaeus continuing to make plays and getting them out of a jam after, like, it was 1st and 20 after the back-to-back false starts. All of a sudden the scoreboard says 1st and 15. I don't know how they gave him 5 yards. There's been some weird things happening with that scoreboard during camp that I can't account for. But Zacchaeus picked up a big gain there. He picked up a big gain after that on the 45-yard catch and run. Like, there's 2 really good receivers right now who have had strong camps. It's not to say anything about DJ Moore. We know DJ is a target. We know that he's been being moved all over the place. But it's nice, I think, for the Bears to know the investment in Rome Odunze is certainly, it's a good return right now, and that a guy that they picked up on a 1-year deal, took advantage of an opportunity. That was supposed to be like, okay, you get Zacchaeus for cheap in free agency. Luther Burden's going to come in here and come on a tear. Like, Burden's still learning the offense, and he missed a lot of time. I think that, biggest impact he might make right now is on punt return. So I think a lot of this is there. There's always going to be a lot of negative that comes out from camp on days where it feels like the same mistakes keep happening. But there are some bright spots that you've seen with the receivers that are coming into form.
No news is good news. Jurko alluded to that earlier.
Yeah.
You haven't heard a lot about
the defensive line,
which is probably a good thing, right?
Yeah. I think the defense is going to have to carry them the first couple weeks of the season, and that's normal when you have an offense that's learning a brand new system and kind of reverting back to what they have been here historically: run the ball, rely on your defense. That's going to be the key here. And defense had a good day today. Like, it's different. I was talking with Sylvie. Like, I saw it was during during the 2-minute drill for Buffalo's offense against the first-team Bears defense, and the way that ball comes off of Josh Allen's hand, it's like, my God, like, you understand why this guy was an MVP. Like, to see a quarterback that can win from the pocket as much as he can in the ball placement, that was a nice test for this defense today, and they came away, with some good moments. I know there was one that was like a tip from Jaquan Brisker that I believe Tremaine Edmonds ended up picking off. There weren't as many turnovers as there were last week against Miami, but it was, this defense is going to have to carry them for a while, and I think consistently they've had some good days.
Jalen Johnson, we certainly want him in there, and we want him to be a part of that starting core. They've been without him, which has given an opportunity for others to be able to come in there and get a lot of experience in there. If they're without Jalen Johnson for a handful of time, does that defensive backfield look still like the strength of that defense?
They're definitely hurting. I don't know if I'd call it the strength right now. And that's just based on the fact that you've got Tyreek Stevenson, who would, if we're shifting roles, is he the guy who then travels with the number 1 receiver? He's got the press corner skills, press man coverage skills to do it. It's him, it's Nashawn Wright on the other side, and then it would be Josh Blackwell if the Kyler Gordon injury becomes a thing. And I know he's week to week right now. He's got a hamstring injury. Blackwell's a pretty solid backup nickel, and he had to do it quite a bit last year when Gordon got hurt. But I would say that just naturally, you miss 2 of your best defensive backs. How could that possibly be the strength of your defense still? As long as the safeties stay healthy. We know how much dime they use in this defense and how many times you'll see 3 safeties on the field as part of those sub packages. Like, they can't afford any more injuries back there. So they've got to keep Jaquan Brisker healthy, Kevin Byard healthy, Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hicks. Like, have that depth there, because your cornerback room is certainly taking a hit.
All right, anything else we should know, Courtney?
I think that covers it. It's still don't know how long Caleb and the starters are going to play on Sunday. I asked Ben Johnson that at the end of the press conference today. He said to be determined. They got a good bit of work in. Same amount today that they did last week in terms of 2-hour, 15, 20-minute practice. Not as hot, but it was, the Bills brought the juice today. Like, I felt like it really took a long time for Miami to try to match the Bears' intensity. Like, what the Bears came out with today, Buffalo was like, okay, like, we're at that same level. And that was, I think it's a good measuring stick to see just how far the Bears have to go when you see a team that is a consistently in the mix of playing for the AFC Championship, where the Bears need to go to get there.
That's
on their own respect.
Absolutely right. All right, Courtney, great stuff. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks. Courtney Cronin brought to you by Costa Ivoni.